Good morning. I'm Joe Mendoza, Captain of the Sheriff's Information Bureau. Thank you for coming to our press conference to discuss our public safety readiness during this presidential inauguration week. Joining Sheriff Alex Villanueva and other members of his executive command staff, we have with us today the Mayor of the City of Los Angeles, Eric Garcetti, Assistant Director in charge of Federal Bureau of Investigations, Los Angeles Office, Christy Johnson, Chief of the Los Angeles Police Department, Michael Moore, from the Governor's Office of Emergency Services, Chief Paul Walters, President of the Los Angeles County Chiefs of Police Association and Chief of Vernon Police Department, Anthony Miranda, who is also accompanied by the Executive Board of the Los Angeles County Chiefs of Police Association. The order of speakers will be Sheriff Alex Villanueva, Mayor Eric Garcetti, FBI Assistant Director in charge Christy Johnson, Chief Michael Moore, LASD Assistant Sheriff Stephen Gross, and LASD Chief Jack Jewell. Now, I would like to introduce the Sheriff of Los Angeles County, Alex Villanueva.
This is a cool breeze in Palmdale, by the way. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here this afternoon. I want to start by thanking all my public safety partners here. They're right behind me. Los Angeles Mayor Eric Garcetti, Federal Bureau of Investigation Assistant Director in charge Christy Johnson, Los Angeles Police Chief Michael Moore, from the Governor's Office of Emergency Services, Chief Paul Walters. There we go. Okay, the Executive Board of the LA County Police Chiefs Association, we have Chief Anthony Miranda. There we go. And then from Vernon, Chief Gene Harris from San Gabriel. And then we have Chief Kelly Gordon from Monterey Park. Public safety will always be my priority, as it is for my partners standing here with me. Tomorrow, President-elect Joe Biden and Vice President-elect Kamala Harris will be sworn into office. The peaceful transfer of power is a hallmark of our democracy and one of the pillars which defines us as a nation. Given the acts of deadly domestic terrorism which occurred at the Capitol last week, we have ensured we are prepared for whatever may occur here. As the saying goes, we hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. The images from the Capitol on January 6, 2021 will be seared in our memories forever. But make no mistake, this was not a reflection of the patriotism, professionalism, and dedication of law enforcement officers throughout our nation. We're also collaborating with Homeland Security through what is known as a Fusion Center, which essentially connects all law enforcement. This is a bridge between federal, state, tribal, and local entities. And remember, we cannot stress enough how important information and intelligence are. And if you see something, say something. I want to reassure the public your safety is my priority and our priority, and this is for all of us who are standing behind me here. Let me be clear, I fully support the First Amendment and the peaceful demonstrations, but we will not allow violent behavior to take a foot anywhere. The First Amendment is not a passport to engage in violent acts against others or damage property. Many of you are wondering if there are credible threats here in Los Angeles County, and the answer is no. Right now, there is no credible threat. But regardless of that, our mission is to act as there was one. We are prepared. In addition to our patrol force, we have placed our detectives and our desk personnel in uniform, so they are also ready to stand and be able to respond to any disturbance. Additionally, our 24-hour operations center is closely monitoring information related to the presidential inauguration in Washington, D.C. We sent 38 sworn deputies from our department to assist with President-elect Biden's inauguration detail. Here at home, as you can see, we have displayed many of our specialized personnel, which Assistant Sheriff Steve Gross, where we got Steve right there, and Chief Jack Jewell will be speaking about later on. And finally, I want to remind everyone we are still in a pandemic, so please think about your families. And should you decide to come out, wear your mask, practice safe social distancing. Our hospitals are inundated with very sick patients, and Los Angeles County is the first county in the nation, unfortunately, to surpass 1 million COVID-19 cases. We cannot afford to get this wrong. Let's be responsible and not add to the problem. Now, thank you. Now, please let me allow to introduce the Mayor of Los Angeles, Mayor Eric Garcetti.
Thank you very much, Sheriff Villanueva. I appreciate you hosting us and convening us here. And a very good afternoon to everybody, to our law enforcement partners, to our Chief of Police, Michael Moore, thank you for being here. Just a half hour ago, I was atop City Hall. And in the Tom Bradley Ballroom, named after our greatest mayor and a former police officer, I rang the bell of City Hall as we, together with this entire country, commemorated the dead that we have lost to COVID-19. 5:30 East Coast time, 2:30 Pacific time. This is quite a year that we've been living through, and quite a moment in which we are about to turn a page of history, one that I hope people are excited about and not just anxious about. Because our democracy does work, and this is proof of it. We have the guardians of democracy, we have the participants of democracy, and tomorrow we will see the peaceful transition of our democracy here in America. I can understand people's anxiety here in Los Angeles and certainly around the country after watching what happened in our nation's capital on the January 6th attack. The insurrection wasn't an attack on Congress or on a party. It was an assault on our democracy and on the peaceful transition of power and the will of the people. And while that mob failed, they failed to overthrow or to stop the turning of our democracy, it did embolden armed groups across our country and provoke new threats to American cities. So I want every Angelino to know clearly, our guard is up, and we are working around the clock to ensure your safety, and so that you can breathe in the democracy tomorrow and celebrate a peaceful inauguration week in Los Angeles. As the sheriff said, right now, there's no credible and specific intelligence about these threats reaching the city of Los Angeles or the greater Los Angeles region. We certainly do not expect violence, but we are prepared to keep our city safe no matter what, from all and any threats that may arise. LAPD has been deployed in increased numbers throughout the city. Cal OES, the state's emergency services, will have National Guard troops stationed nearby, but we have no plans or desire to deploy these troops, but they are ready if needed. U.S. Postal Service will temporarily remove several mailboxes in the Los Angeles area and key locations. And this really is a coordinated response at every single level, where we will monitor threats, where we take necessary action, and respond in the worst-case scenario. As the sheriff eloquently said, each one of us has a right to free speech, something that we celebrated 4 years ago when it was these same guardians who peacefully allowed people to take to the streets, some maybe to express their joy, and many to express their disappointment. But I want to be very clear. If you are planning violence here in Los Angeles, you will be stopped, you will be prosecuted, and you will pay the price. We are prepared to maintain order and to protect our city. And just as America has sworn in new presidents in times of peace and in times of war, in crisis and in calm, tomorrow we will do it again. I'm one of the 4 co-chairs of the inauguration, and I will be staying here because that's the right thing to do during a pandemic. And I'm encouraging folks, while you have the right to be out, to be conscious of this public health moment. And please, use your discretion, and if you can, stay at home. Celebrate virtually with people, or if you're not happy, commiserate with people virtually. But stay off of our streets as much as possible. Just because you have the right to be there, let's all do whatever we can to save lives. With that, let me turn it over now to a great partner and recent arrival in Los Angeles, but already an Angelina, and the Assistant Director in charge of the Los Angeles Office of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Christy Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Sheriff. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Christy Johnson. I'm the Assistant Director in charge of the FBI's Los Angeles Field Office. I'd like to begin by telling you what we know, what concerns us, and I'd like to describe what our posture has been leading up to from last week to tomorrow's inauguration. We are aware, like many of you, of reports indicating there may be protests at government buildings and elsewhere leading up to tomorrow. While we are continuously evaluating tips and leads, throughout our region and chatter, we currently have no indication, as what has already been mentioned by the mayor and the sheriff, we have no indication of a specific or credible threat to the 7-county area that my office covers. On a regular basis, the FBI shares intelligence and looks to identify potential threats. We share that information through a mechanism that the FBI maintains through the Joint Terrorism Task Force, or the JTTF. Through this, the JTTF is comprised of state, local, and federal partners. Every major department throughout this area has task force officers assigned to the JTTF. We work with every police agency as well to share information that we've gleaned locally, nationally, and internationally. We ask that our local partners share intelligence with us so that we can put that together and look at the entire threat picture and make sure that we are identifying anything that we need to address before it happens. Starting last Friday, my office started a command post 24/7. That was designed to make sure that we were in a posture to make sure that we are identifying any threats. The command post includes special agents, intel analysts, support staff, and of course our partners from the local agencies here in Los Angeles. While we are doing everything in our power to prepare for any threat that might develop, it must be emphasized that the FBI respects the right of every American to peacefully exercise their First Amendment protected rights. Our investigative focus is only on individuals who commit acts of violence or threaten the public and the safety of others. We are not focused on law-abiding demonstrators exercising their constitutionally protected rights to peacefully protest. As always, we need the help of the community. I am asking anybody that has any information about criminal or suspicious activity to please contact my office at 310-477-6565 or visit tips.fbi.gov. The public we serve always acts as our eyes and ears, and we rely on you to help us do our job. The FBI is committed to carrying out our dual mission of protecting the American people and upholding the Constitution of the United States. Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to introduce Los Angeles Police Department Police Chief Michael Moore.
Thank you, Christy Johnson, Sheriff Inauguration, Mayor Garcetti, the men and women of the LA County Police Chiefs Association, thank you for being here. My leadership team behind me, Chief Kamala, Chief Frank, and all the rank and file. In today's day and time, this is a type of collective effort that makes a difference in how Los Angeles stays one of the safest places in America. It's law enforcement agencies at the state, federal, and local level that lean towards the problem, that go to define and understand the nature of the threat. We've been monitoring the approaching inauguration now for some months, and while we're all deeply disturbed, traumatized by the attacks on our nation's capital on the 6th, it only blended into the overall planning for this event tomorrow. As Mayor Garcetti indicated, that beautiful lady right there and this one here, as sisters, are the downtown civic center heart of our government, of our state and county and city leaders, of what this great democracy means in action. And we will protect it, and we'll defend it, and we're prepared for any threat that might come against it. LAPD has been in uniform since yesterday, the entire organization. We've been working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the intel cycle, on planning for eventualities and potentialities. We will be here, and we will meet any threat that comes our way. I appreciate the partnerships that we have with our fellow law enforcement leaders, and as was said by a number of others, what's really critical to the success will not be our planning. It'll be the public's watching out for all of our safety. What's critical here is not our vigilance. What's critical here is yours. Tomorrow is a day to watch this transfer of power, our great democracy, this great experiment, to see it change from one party to the next, and to see it done in a manner that makes us all proud as Americans. Win or lose, this is democracy in action. Do so from your home. Do so from a place of security and safety during this COVID-19 pandemic. We're losing too many lives in public places and exposing ourselves needlessly. So please stay home. You're safer at home. Enjoy this inauguration and the celebrations that follow, and let us all look towards the day of being united as United States of America. God bless you for being here and covering this and giving added attention. Lastly, if you see something, say something, LAPD iWatch is also another resource. And at this point, it's my pleasure to introduce Assistant Sheriff Stephen Gross.
Thank you, Chief Moore. I'm going to follow up on a few things that the sheriff had mentioned earlier. My name is Steve Gross. I'm the assistant sheriff who oversees our 23 sheriff stations that patrol the county of Los Angeles. The deputies who provide this law enforcement service to our contract cities and our county areas are highly trained, well-equipped, and they are committed to the public safety. These deputies have been really in a constant state of readiness all throughout this COVID-19 pandemic, as well as periods of protest. So with our large patrol contingent, we can combine our resources into what we call mobile field forces. Now, our mobile field forces is where we take a number of our patrol-trained deputies that are out in the field, and we bring them together into one group so that they can go and respond to emergencies with little notice. We have some of our deputies here that would be on groups like that, and they're from our Century Station that are off to the side here. This can all be done while we keep an adequate number of patrol personnel at the stations that require that handle the required calls for service. So mobile field forces allow for the rapid and strategic use of our patrol deputies to be directed to large-scale events in our patrol areas and in support of mutual aid. Deployment of resources can be controlled by our Department Operations Center, which has now been activated for this week. And it consists of specialized personnel who manage resources, gather intelligence, disseminate information, and work closely with our law enforcement counterparts. For this week, as the sheriff mentioned, all sworn personnel will be in uniform, fully equipped, and ready to be deployed if necessary. At this time, I'd now like to introduce Chief Jack Jewell, who is of our Special Operations Division. He's going to go on to explain his specialized personnel and resources and how they support the patrol resources.
Thank you, sir. Like Assistant Sheriff Gross said, my name is Jack Jewell. I'm the Chief of the Special Operations Division for the Sheriff's Department. I'd like to reassure the public that they are in safe hands throughout the week. Even though there's many things going on with the inauguration, the Sheriff's Department, along with all of our law enforcement partners, will protect them. Specifically, I will speak to our Special Operations Division. You will see them out on alert in larger numbers than normal. The Special Operations Division supports all of our patrol personnel and other agencies throughout the county with specialized services. Some of the Special Operations Division personnel are standing behind me today with their specialized equipment. One of the teams or representatives from that team is the Sheriff's Response Team. These deputies are specially trained in dealing with large gatherings and large crowds. They have special training and equipment to assist with those duties. You'll also see an increased presence on our transit system, on our Metro Rail, on our buses, on our MetroLink trains. We have specialized deputies in all of those positions that will pay special emphasis to our transportation system throughout the week. In addition to that, we have a large contingent of our Special Weapons Team personnel, both on the ground and in aircraft throughout the week. Some of their specialties, again, you can see their equipment behind me, but they have specialized protective vehicles that protects the community, can transport people out of an area where there could be gunfire and keep them protected in the back of these vehicles until they can get them to safety. You'll also see behind me a protective advanced life support paramedic unit that is staffed by sheriff medical personnel. These people are trained to, in the unlikely event that there is some type of shooting or other terrorist type incident, they can go in while the area is still a hot zone and protect and treat people and get them to the proper medical care. In addition to those personnel, we also have special weapons teams members that are their specialty is in as tactical bomb techs. They're able to go out and identify suspicious objects, identify IEDs if such a thing existed, and render those items safe. In addition to that, we have our tactical hazmat personnel behind me, and they're able to, with their equipment, screen transportation hubs, the port in Los Angeles and Long Beach, the marina, our coastal areas, and any critical infrastructure for any radiation type devices that could be brought into the area. We also have a contingent behind me of our specialty canines. We'll have canines deployed throughout the week that can do a number of things, including canines that can detect illicit chemical or biological weapons, canines that detect accelerants that would be in an incendiary device that somebody could have with them, and various other canine resources that can detect explosives. In conclusion, the community is safe, and everyone behind me will be out in force for the week, keeping everybody safe. And with that, I conclude the Special Operations Division comments, and I'd like to bring back up Sheriff Villanueva, please.
I'm going to switch real quick to Spanish, and I'll have then reintroduce Mayor Garcetti for quick remarks in Spanish, and then we'll take questions. So, buenas tardes a todos y gracias por estar aquí. Primeramente, quiero agradecer a mis colegas del condado y de la ciudad de Los Ángeles, al alcalde Eric Garcetti de la ciudad de Los Ángeles, al jefe de policía Michael Moore y al subdirector del FBI Christy Johnson. Entonces, también quiero agradecerle al representante de la oficina del gobernador, el señor Paul Walters, que está aquí. Y entonces la Asociación de los Jefes de la Policía de aquí del Condado de Los Ángeles, tenemos a 3 de las ciudades de Vernon, de Maywood y de San Gabriel y Monterey Park. Bueno, la seguridad del público es mi prioridad y también es la prioridad de todos mis colegas. Mañana el presidente electo Joe Biden tomará posesión y debido a las acciones fatales de terrorismo doméstico en el Capitolio la semana pasada, hemos reforzado los niveles de seguridad considerablemente. Lo que presenciamos todos en el Capitolio no es una reflexión del profesionalismo, el patriotismo de nuestros personal quienes trabajan como policías. También estamos colaborando con la Seguridad Nacional en lo que se conoce como un centro de fusión, lo cual básicamente conecta a todos los agentes de seguridad, ya sea de federal, estatal y local. Una vez más, quiero asegurar al público que su seguridad es mi prioridad y nuestra prioridad. Entonces, esto es la prioridad de todos los que están aquí detrás de mí. Que quede claro que apoyan las manifestaciones pacíficas, pero no tolero el comportamiento violento. Apoyo el primer derecho de la Constitución, pero no es excusa para invadir la propiedad privada o para agredir a oficiales. Hasta ahora no hay amenaza de violencia, pero como estamos preparados, como si lo hubiese. Nuestro centro de operaciones está monitoreando las 24 horas del día eventos relacionados a la toma de posesión. Enviamos a 38 alguaciles a Washington para ayudar en la toma de posesión del presidente electo Joe Biden. Aquí en casa tenemos listo a nuestro equipo encargado de responder a emergencias, mayores si es necesario. Y para finalizar, quiero recordarles que el verdadero peligro sigue siendo el COVID-19, que estamos en la pandemia. Y por favor, piensen en sus familias y si no tienen que salir afuera, no salgan afuera. Manténganse cubiertos, practicar la distancia social. Y tenemos que acordarnos que los hospitales están inundados de pacientes muy enfermos en este momento. Y desafortunadamente el condado de Los Ángeles es el primer condado a través de toda la nación que llegó al millón de casos del COVID-19. No podemos seguir así. Cuidémonos y mostremos al país que somos un condado fuerte. Gracias y voy a pasar otra vez al alcalde de Los Ángeles, Eric Garcetti.
Gracias, Sheriff Villanueva, y gracias a todos los miembros de este equipo por su trabajo a proteger nuestro condado y nuestra ciudad. Mañana será un gran día por los Estados Unidos, la transición pacífica del poder en Washington entre un presidente y el nuevo presidente Joe Biden. No ahora tenemos ninguna amenaza creíble o específica aquí en Los Ángeles, pero vamos a proteger nuestra ciudad, nuestro condado. Este es un día donde toda la gente nosotros podemos celebrar esta transición y si hay una persona, cualquier que intente dañar nuestra ciudad, será detenido, procesado y pagará el precio. La democracia requiere vigilancia, pero no permitiremos que una turba dañe a nuestra nación y detenga la voluntad del pueblo. Yo soy el cojefe de esta inauguración mañana, pero yo estaré aquí para proteger la ciudad y trabajar contra el COVID. Y es mi esperanza que toda la gente en Los Ángeles tenemos derechos para protestar con el First Amendment, el Primer Amendment, pero es importante que toda la gente tome acciones seguras, no solamente para nuestra ciudad, pero para nuestra salud también. Gracias y gracias otra vez, Sheriff Villanueva.
Thank you. At this time, we want to open it up to questions.
For the county, we do not have any permits that we know of. And the city apparently has 3.
Right. So we currently have 3 demonstrations that'll be planned for tomorrow, one at City Hall, one at MacArthur Park, and one at another part south of here. So all 3 of them are expected to be peaceful. They're being advertised as demonstrations with no illicit intentions, and we believe that they'll be conducted without any challenges or problems. Oh, yes. Well, I've not met with them, but our area commanders at each of the respective areas have met with them and are outreach and engaging. That's our standard MO, is to always reach out to organizers, understand their intentions, what their desires are, and how we can help facilitate the First Amendment rights of everyone.
First Amendment rights could go sideways in about 30 seconds. Rules of engagement, police department, sheriff's department. These marches or anything start to turn into vandalism, destruction, anything like that.
So as Sheriff Villanueva indicated regarding demonstrations that we anticipate may occur over tomorrow and the coming days, it's what Angelino's best known for, which is the ability of America to come to a common place, to express their First Amendment rights, and to respect each other, and not to break the law, not to commit acts of vandalism or acts of violence. Should acts of vandalism or violence take place, we will take immediate action, make arrests, and prosecute those individuals vigorously. This was what Mayor Garcetti also made in his remarks. So to be clear, we welcome everyone to stay home. It's safer at home today because of this pandemic. But we also recognize, in today in American history, what a profound moment every inauguration represents, and an opportunity to come out and express yourself. What we ask is to exercise safe distance from each other, wear face coverings, recognize the perils of this pandemic, and if you choose to be in a public place and exercise your First Amendment rights, we'll do everything possible to facilitate it. However, if you break the law, if you commit acts of property damage or vandalism, or acts of violence against anyone, including a police officer, we'll aggressively arrest and prosecute you.
Absolutely. So it was the guidance from the inauguration and also from my sister mayor, Muriel Bowser, in Washington. Please don't travel and come to Washington because of the pandemic. And it was a momentarily painful decision to make, but it was absolutely the right one, and actually was a no-brainer for me to not come. I have, I think Governor Whitmer is my co-chair, and then 3 members of Congress. Mr. Clyburn is the chair of the inauguration. We have a 10-day quarantine here in Los Angeles. How can I expect anybody to respect that if I don't respect a 5-day quarantine in Washington, D.C. that Mayor Bowser has? So this is about the public health first. And quite frankly, I can't spare a day here. I'll be out in Dodger Stadium working at the vaccine site, working together with the county to try to get our limited supply of vaccines out to as many people as quickly as possible. In terms of the security, I've been briefed as co-chair on the security posture there. Obviously, a lot of things are being minimized there, partially because of COVID, but also because of safety. So obviously no traditional parades. It'll be a quick escort into the White House, and enough of a celebration, but that will be done virtually throughout the country. And so we have the same sort of posture here. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best, as Sheriff Villanueva said. I also want to remind people, though, yesterday was supposed to be a tough day, and it wasn't. I think people recognize that there is a consequence to the sorts of actions that we saw at the Capitol, and you'd have to be an idiot to try it twice. So we hope that folks will continue with that. You can never protect against lone wolves and others, but organized groups, we have not seen, especially, anything close to the sort of threats that we saw or organizing going on, but that same posture is continuing both ways. There's also, I know, been a brush fire that has broken out in Santa Clarita outside the city. It may come into the city of 50 acres, and with this kind of wind, much bigger soon.
So the policing in this area is seen and unseen. To your point that the Civic Center, faith institutions, we know the critical infrastructure that they represent and how they can be viewed as potential targets. And so we're taking steps to provide for the safety of those, the oversight of those. We're also aware that there are countless others. There's gathering places, there's shopping malls and centers, there's a host of areas. You cannot defend everything. So what we ask is what my remark was earlier, is that we need the eyes and ears of all of Angelenos. Every incident that has happened in our history of particularly domestic terrorism, when you go back and reverse engineer it, there were telltale signs that we missed. We missed as Americans, not law enforcement alone, but as Americans, we knew we had a neighbor that was a little bit off. They were doing some things that we wish now we had gone back and notified a law enforcement professional. This vigilance is for tomorrow, but this vigilance is for every day as we look across the safety of America at a time when I'm hopeful and looking forward to President Biden and his remarks of unity and bringing this country back together as the United States of America. But to your point of defending everything, we cannot, but we rely upon a vigilant public to notify and work with us. Yeah, so again, we are on regular patrols, dedicated patrols on known critical infrastructure sites, including elected officials and the seat of government. Yes? So I'm going to ask Sheriff Villanueva as the Chief Law Enforcement Officer for LA County to address that. Thank you.
Ma'am? Can you repeat that?
Are there any plans to keep the National Guard will be on standby or coming proactive?
Well, we're going to be proactive, and we have definitely, there's some lag time involved when you ever need to order the National Guard. It takes some time to assemble and then deploy here. So as if we deplete our resources and the rate that we deplete resources as situations unfold, then we'll make that determination to alert the National Guard first and then give them, pull the trigger to have them start rolling and to respond as part of a mutual aid request. But that's part of my job as the coordinator for mutual aid, is we'll make sure that we have enough resources to meet the challenges that we're facing.
So they have to, just to clarify, that they're not the National Guard.
No. The governor has done that for the state as a whole. Yeah, and that is very true.
They're pre-deployed.
In fact, we can have here, Paul Walter can speak of that.
We have 200 troops on standby at Los Alamitos as we speak. So they're available to respond. I believe they're MP forces.
To my knowledge, we have only one from our department. However, that information, everything we have, we provided immediately to the FBI. And you want to speak to that?
So across the country, as you've seen and heard, we've had many leads sent out to investigate and arrest and conduct search warrants regarding activities from January 6th in the United States Capitol. So we are covering any lead that we get from our partners, any lead that involves any employee of any organization that gives us information. We certainly are interested in speaking to learn anything that they saw as witnesses, as well as potential for any additional subjects.
So with here in the state of Los Angeles, I gave direction that anyone who traveled to Washington, D.C. on January 6th was to identify themselves. First, it's an action that in this quarantine, they have to isolate themselves upon return, and they have responsibility to identify that. Secondly, we knew it was a matter of great public interest as to the actions of people in Washington, D.C. on the 6th of January. To date, we've identified 3 individuals that traveled in an off-duty capacity, and the information that we have garnered to this date is that their actions were limited to attending a rally, that they were not on the Capitol grounds or inside the Capitol, or nor engaged in any criminal actions. Ms. Johnson and myself spoke immediately upon learning of the first individual, and we've fully cooperated with the FBI on their investigation, and each of the 3 individuals have been ordered to provide any statement necessary by the FBI in their investigation. Yes, and at this point, there's no information that they committed any type of criminal offense. If that were to change, obviously the actions would be swift and certain in regards to consequences for that. Thank you.
I want to thank everybody for coming. This concludes our press conference. Thank you.